For years, I used to keep the classroom environment the same, and Paula really helped me see the need to make changes to the environment based on how we see children using it and based on the learning that we see happening. Yesterday, we made quite the change at the end of the day for a variety of reasons. First of all, because this back area space, which initially had the Lego table right down the center, as well as the make-do kit in the sensory bin, which produced a lot of creating over there. The eating table over here, but also some block play happening over here, as well as at the back of the room, really produced a lot of additional noise and made it harder, it seemed, for some children to really settle into the play. So we thought that it might be worth considering the flow of the room and the volume as well. So we kept our eating table where it was. We've moved the blocks from the back wall space where children were creating before over to this little carpet space over here. The wooden blocks in particular are really loud when they land on the floor, which means that as children build, it just happens to increase the volume in the room as well. So we thought that having the little piece of carpet space for the building might make it that much quieter as children are actually creating, and then it connects to the dramatic play that's happening behind that with our right now wedding time shop, but with the clothes creation and stuff too. So it kind of lends itself to being able to go into both spaces. We have a few little writing places right on the block carpet if children are looking to maybe create some plans or even just have that quiet area down by the floor, which sometimes really works well. We noticed that students were really using this easel to write on yesterday, so thought that maybe taking it out of the dramatic play space and moving it back a bit might produce a quiet area where they can write, draw, and create together. We put the Lego table against the wall. Often when tables are against a wall, they also help decrease the noise in the room, creates kind of like a nook for the building, and may not make the Lego as central, which may draw a few less students to it, and maybe some students that would benefit from some other spaces in the room. Now there are some of those options. We rethought about what was in the sensory bin, liked the idea of creating, but found that the stuff that was happening on the creative table with making a lot of the zoo animals and stuff for our zoo that's happening in the back corner might actually work even better if we created kind of a maker space over by the sensory bin where we do have an area for children to glue and cut, create with the recycled materials, have some things in here for planning and writing and kind of putting it all together. We noticed the draw to the plasticine. It is very sensory, so thought that maybe if we put it up on a table with the two materials. We did notice yesterday that when Mermaid Land was linked with the house in a space that was at the same level, children seemed to use both a little bit more, so thought that the table option might be good, and we switched out the creative table with this table because it's a little bit lower, so then children can reach back and forth between the space. Last year we had this in the back corner area and it worked really well. So we're curious to see how it works in this space. Again, it's kind of a quieter option, which may connect well with maybe the blocks that are a little bit louder, but then the eating, which can be louder, can be quiet. So kind of having an area that may be a little bit lower in volume to hopefully help bring down the volume in the classroom as well, and then just helps as students settle into play. It feels a little bit calmer. And over here, of course, there's all the creative space all together so that children can access the recycled materials, they can access the paint that they may want, they can access anything else like paint shirts or whatever from the shelf so that they are all there. Now this table, which is currently empty because B4 Care is going to be in the room in a minute, is going to become kind of like a writing, drawing table. Sometimes we have this space and sometimes we don't. We do find that children write everywhere and that the addition of clipboards and labels into other areas of the room seem to produce that writing. But we did notice that the emojis that we had out the other day really produced some amazing storytelling, and children were starting to turn the stories into books. So we thought that maybe if we create this space, it will help kind of draw that group to the writing and the drawing and the creating, and maybe even link it with this massive zoo. So we've extended the zoo space and made this entire back corner into the zoo. You can see the multiple boards that the children have created. There's so much thinking if you look back on our blog, but behind each of their creations, why they've covered certain areas in with the cages and left other areas open because of the height of the different animals, how they've separated the boards, putting crocodiles and alligators on one versus monkeys and bears in another, how they've created even their parking lot space and thought about the price of the parking lot. Yesterday, Paula mentioned to them the idea of maybe doing multi-floor parking lots. They were going to look at that option today. How they've put like the fish and the sea creatures and stuff into the salt water, and why they chose salt water over fresh water based on the animals that they wanted to include. So there's all kinds of thought to it. We did think that we would add, this was Paula's idea, this paper along the back wall might create some painting of the scenery of the environment back there, could allow children to start hanging some of their animals that they've created along the back wall as well, so giving another space for them and providing an opportunity for some labeling and writing as well. And again, with it being against a wall, it tends to bring down the volume in the room as well. So it creates this like quiet space that draws a number of children to it, but also seems very calming, especially with the sensory component of the painting. And children have really taken ownership over this space, from even wiping their own brushes, creating new colors, going over to the paint jars to make the colors that they wish. So really taking ownership over this space. And then our open carpet area, we do find it best when there's a space for them to write or draw. You can see we have some additional blocks under there. Not the greatest of storage spaces, but seems to be the one that holds it. Sometimes we've pulled the blocks out, or the children have pulled them out to create on the carpet, so it provides that other block space if needed, but also has some clipboards where they can kind of lie down and write. A lot of children are really drawn to that idea of lying down low on the floor to have a space to write and draw. So now they've got that space over on the carpet, and it's easy enough for them to create that space after our meeting time. And of course, we do have our quiet book area as well, which always draws students. Strangely enough, it seems to work really well next to the dramatic play space. People seem to go kind of fluidly between the two areas and almost use this like a waiting room of sorts as they go to create or purchase things in our pretend store. So it does seem to draw a large number of students to the sofa space, but still have its own defined area. So we're hoping that the changes that we made will help, one, bring down the volume in the room, still kind of create those little spaces within the environment for the children to be able to kind of get what they need in the different areas, consider the different sensory needs of our students that are here and what might benefit them, and also create a flow of the room, particularly with regards to this zoo, which has taken on a life of its own and really had children re-examine animals and how they live with each other, looking at signs in an environmental space. So hopefully that whole connection will help kind of continue to extend this zoo space for today. And we're excited to see what happens when parents also come in for our family art afternoon and how their involvement in this space changes things too. So, you know what? It's an ever evolving space. And no matter how we kind of set up an environment, I think it's important to see how kids are using it. And then when things don't always work exactly as planned, maybe reconsidering some components of the space to think about how they might work better.